Okay, I hope you see my screen and you can hear me well. If no, you can ping me. Okay, few words about myself. So I work as BI engineer at Jabil. It is a big FMCG company which produces some boards for computers across the world. And here in Jabil, I'm responsible for Power BI stuff, and sometimes they also ask me to do not only Power BI but Tableau reporting, and also do some administration for Jabil at Power BI side, and also doing volunteering for Power BI and try to help others to get Power BI knowledge. Usually I'm doing webinars for my local community in Russian or Ukrainian language, but this time I decided to expand our meetings to other people in other countries, and because it may be very interesting, and I'd like to know opinion of other people, to look at these approaches which I found. And I'm also certified for Power BI and also as trainer, Microsoft certified trainer. Okay, so our agenda will be this one. So few words about the task, then about architecture I used, example, and then we'll go to demo. Okay, so about task, so sometimes you may need to know what is happening with your Power BI environment, what let's say about data sets, workspaces, reports, users, what they do, what is happening with your objects in Power BI. And you can actually do some querying using APIs, and it can provide you some data. You can use Power BI capacity metrics application, but it is available for premium or embedded only. And also how to keep this information, let's say for 1 year. So there are definitely different approaches, like you can go to Azure, create a data factory flow and store your data in database. But what if you don't want to spend such money, like thousands of dollars on this? Maybe you want to do some POC to show your folks in company or somewhere else. So how to do it with less amount of money? So how to do it in more easier way, maybe, because data factory requires maybe more setup than Power Automate. And here I think I use some much easier architectures that can be done in using Azure. So you can compare and decide what you want. I will show you real examples and some limits I found, not for this architecture, but for APIs, and it may be useful for you. So architecture is not complex. So there is Power BI service, and it has REST API. It's kind of a query which you can run against Power BI and return some information about Power BI service, like a list of datasets, some information about datasets, which reports are linked to datasets, workspaces, and other. So all this information can be loaded from Power BI service using API. And you can use many tools to run such API queries against Power BI service. In this case, I used Power Automate for my Microsoft Flow. And then I store a result of API request into SharePoint. So if you need, I think you can try with OneDrive, it may work. So any other places, so I used in this case approach without on-premise sources or some interaction. So everything here is in cloud. So files are stored in SharePoint, so it's for me it's useful. Then you can create a report based on these JSON files. Even if you decide to move from Power Automate to other application like Data Factory or some Logic Apps or something else, the approach with API will still be the same. Okay, yeah. Show flow example. This one of flows I used. In this case, I get capacities, and I will show you the code I used here in the architecture. So in few words, I need to get credentials like authorization token before I use API for Power BI. Then I need to extract specifically a token from the result, then push it to the next API request, which will be like to get a list of capacities with details, and export result to SharePoint as file. Okay, so go to demo. So I created a couple of flows. Some stuff is not working in API, so my job is not fully done because I still want to do some extra setup with this, what I did. I will explain you later what is not done from Microsoft side. But in general, the approach we can try and it is working fine. So let's say you want to get workspaces or data sets. I will duplicate the tab. So you go to Microsoft Flow. You need to create a new flow. Let's say you want to have it scheduled. You give it a name. Say I want to have it standardized. And also maybe I will do it from scratch. So copy the name. So I need to create the flows for each of APIs to have data extracted into SharePoint. I created a couple of folders in where I store the results from API. For instance, you want to do analytics over time within different periods, so it can be useful. So you can search what was happening in some period of time. So this you can keep history. I would like to extract at the moment refreshables. What it is? So you know there is data set between Power BI report. So data is stored in dataset. And refreshable means also it is a dataset. Actually, which object was refreshed. So you can go to documentation, to admin group, and check what you want to extract. For instance, you want to have refreshables. Here you see a link. It is actually a API request. In other words, you can also name it as HTTP request. There are some little differences, but in general, you can think it is the same. So you need to get a link. There might be some parameters. You even can skip them if you don't need. And in our case, let's try to get refreshables. So basically, datasets with information how they were refreshed. So go to flow. So let's say go create it here from blank scheduled. Oh, I've got, I need to have a name. Okay, scheduled. So give it a name, put a time. So I have UTC +3, and I would like to have it in the morning each day. Create. So then you create a new step. You first of all you need to get a token which can explain that API request should go under your credentials. So before that, you need to create few things in Azure. It is free, but you need at least to have an account in Azure. But there is also another way I can explain you if you don't want to create a token using Azure. There is a little bit manual way, but it works without Azure. So let's go with this approach first. So you can create a new app registration. This is not scary, so just few things need to be done here. I select for my organization, for my tenant, nothing should be filled, it is enough for now. So you have an app registration. So few steps to make it work. First of all, you would need client ID here, and also you need to create a secret. So go to certificates and secrets, create a new secret, set how long it will be valid, and you can give a name to this secret. So let's say it will be Power Automate demo. Okay, come back to our flow. So why I have duplicate, because it will help me to do in the same way. I searched some time on how to do it right. So there are a couple sources how to get authorization token, and many of sources are in programming languages like C# or JavaScript. So I spent some time on searching how to get it work using Flow. So this is how I did. So it should be post request. Post, it means you can send some information over the request. Get means get data. Actually, both cases can return data, but sometimes post can even do some activity. Let's say you want to refresh a Power BI dataset, you can use post request. So here it's just the easiest way is to replicate the same approach. So you create a new step. It will be HTTP. We saw there were premium. So if it was fast, I can repeat. So we see it is premium, but it means you need to purchase some Microsoft Flow license, but I have $15 license for Microsoft Flow, and it works for me. So it's probably enough to have this connector. So first of all, post, then you put URL, then what you need, one header, content type. You need to explain that it should be returned in. Actually, the content here is encoded using this type of encoding. This means it should be like encoded like a simple link URL. So you see this replaced some symbols with and actually adapted to URL format. So you can follow the same. So how I found this can be done. So you put grant type in body, scope, resource. It should be the same. It's fine. And then you need to put client ID. So come back to Azure, go to overview and copy client ID. Okay, next there is client secret. Also go to Azure and copy client secret. Okay, next you put username and password of your Power BI, also encoded with URL. If you don't know how to encode it by your hands, for instance, what I did, I just searched URL and coding online, any converter. So let's say you have any symbols. You know what is this one. Then you press encode, and you see it is formatted in the way we need. So I used such service to convert to any of the parameters to this format. Okay, next we save this. If we can rename, like get authorization token, save. We can test already if it is correct. Okay, it's valid. Oh yeah, I forgot one more stuff. So you need to go to authentication. No, hold on. API permissions. So if you want to build such reports, I assume you have rights to assign such permission. So add a permission, search for Power BI service, and select delegated permissions. For this case, if you want to do everything for Power BI, select tenant, read write all, add permissions. So you see it is not granted yet. So then you go to this button, grant admin consent for Zoloturo. So in my case, because it is my ID. Okay, it is granted. Okay, then we can try again. Okay, test. Okay, it is successful. You can click on each step and see the output. So in our case, the result of this API is JSON file in this format. Not actually file, but JSON output. And here is access token right here. So you need to extract this value and use it in API requests from this documentation. Any of these APIs requires authorization. So we need to create the next step to extract the token. Okay, hold on. So let's go here. So it will be parse JSON, edit existing flow, search for parse JSON. Next, you need to put a content which you can you need to parse. So when you click into this field, you see available options which you can use there from previous steps. Like previous step was authorization token, and you can get any of this information. Let's say in our case we need to use body. Body, it is a result from get authorization token API. Another, like finding a plate with JSON and find a proper schema for this specific case. So you need to copy it. It will explain how to parse body. Microsoft Flow will understand where to get a token. So it should be right here. And it can be string data type. So it will understand where it is located in JSON result. So we can save, test. Okay, it is done fine. So click on here. Output is correct. So then we can leverage our result, our token in next API request, which actually can return Power BI usage or some information data. So create one more HTTP request. Okay, in our case, it will be refreshables. So we can use this request. Simply copy. Oh, hold on. here it is method, so it will be get. It will be get request. Select here get and URL. What next? There should be some header, or only one. In our case, it is authorization. Okay, usually tokens, actually sometimes token contain a bearer like text which should be present. What I mean that tokens like in Power BI service, if you go to developer tools and go to any workspace, click on some requests right here in network. Not at every, but in many of them, you can find that, some tokens right here. So to make REST API work, it should contain also bearer, like this word. The one we returned using API does not contain, so we just need to concatenate with this text. Okay, it can be done pretty easy. So put bearer space and then simply go to available content. In our case, parse JSON step in flow returns, because we explained how to return token. So we can simply click here and then in field after bearer and space, click on token. It will be added here, and already it will assume that it should concatenate. I think that's all for this request. Yeah. So pretty basic, just one header, nothing complex. Okay, save, test. So you see it is done also successful. The result of our API request is right here in body, and it is returned in JSON format. So we need to store it in SharePoint. Okay, let's also name it like get refreshables. And next step, final step, is SharePoint. It will be create a file. I think. Yeah, create a file. So you need to put your site address. So in my case, it is this one. It's adding some prefix, but it recognizes me. I think if I try custom value, let's try now. It seems fine. Okay, then you select the folder. I stored my folders for APIs in shared documents. Admin data, and also in the folder refreshables. In my case, because I want to extract refreshables. I would like to name it as previous day. Okay. So this step is done. Oh, not yet. File name. It is interesting. So I propose to have kind of prefix and then date in JSON extension. So let's put refreshables. Then we can add a date. There is a function, go to expression, use function UTC now, but we need to format it in other way. So I use this format. Then you press here and OK. And continue like it should be finished with .json. The content of the file, so it will be the result of previous request, get refreshables. So here on the right, you see all options, what you can put into content. In our case, it will be body from this request. Click on it, click save, and try. Okay, it is done. Go to refreshables, and we see we have a JSON file. So we created a flow which can connect to Power BI service using API. So first of all, we need authorization token, and we need to parse it in order to be able to use it in API request, and we store it as a file into SharePoint. So you can do any of these requests. So you see there a lot of information, capacities, dashboards, data flows, activity events, and other stuff. You can also do the same for other groups of APIs, but group of like admin group is for bulk extract, so you can export without any like additional limits. So in most of the cases you extract everything, but if you go to other groups, it can be limited to, for instance, to workspace. So if you want to get a dashboards, now in this case it may this can also work, but there is API limited in group, so it's limited to workspaces. So some of them are limited. So, but any of them can be used and extracted in the way I showed you. But there is one API which I wanted to include to my report, and I faced an issue because it is not working properly. You can even try APIs without flow and test it simply right here. You can click on try it. Select your Azure account, your tenant, and then you look which parameters you need to set up if they are required. So these activity events can provide you a lot of information about which users, the names, API addresses did which activities. So there is, you can go to activity log from admin portal to audit log. Click on go to Microsoft Center. There is a manual tool where you can search for activities, and API, which I told you before, is actually a way to connect to this information from API. So if you want to do manually, you can search by category you want, Power BI or Flow or Power Apps. In our case, let's say I want to have some, you see there a lot of information, copied report, created report, a lot of stuff. There should be a view it report. Let me try to search. No. View it Power BI report. And you can also select, let's say, dataset, requested, Power BI dataset refresh. Let's say these two. You can select a date period, so you can select not only one day but several. Let's say I want to do it for a few days. So only 2 activities from these 2 which I selected in this period. You have API, user activity, some detail information, quite a lot. So I assumed that I can actually extract this information and use it in Power BI, also store it in SharePoint, maybe I don't know, store it in 1 month, maybe some implement some aggregations over it. But there is a bug in this API. So Microsoft is working on this. So in this API, you can specify only 1 day into UTC format, only 1 UTC day. You need to put 2 parameters, start day time and end day time. You can go to example here and follow the same. Add parameters. I started searching this API and just copied these dates in this format and just simply change 2 dates I need. So it will be 15. Let's say I want to do it for 15th. And I started checking what if I will run it for entire day. So it should work. I just changed dates to one I need. Click run. It is not working properly. Okay. What I found, first of all, it should be in single quotes. Let's try again. Invalid request. Maybe oh yeah, it should be removed. Oh no, what I copied here. Activity events. No. I just tried recently. Just what I selected. It is. Oh yeah, wrong here. So it should be 1 day. So when I remove single quotes and keep it as the same as we see in documentation, we have this error. When we put single quotes, you see it is green, it is working, but return empty. Okay, I found that UTC format date should not contain this extra 0, this part. Okay, I try it again. It's still empty, but as we saw, we should have some information. Okay, it's already hidden. For 15th. Okay, I already maybe removed filters, but before we saw there should be information for 15th. Okay, next I tried to reduce time. You see 14. Click run, and I have data. So I open a ticket to Microsoft to research about this, and it is a bug, and I'm not sure if it will be solved very soon, but I hope within 1 month they may fix this. And after that, we can leverage this interesting API to extract activities per users and do some great analytics over this information. And also, this by some reason a bit limited. So once they fix this with periods, I would like to test it. Maybe something is missing. I don't know, filtering. So we can check it a bit later. It may be working fine. So we have APIs. In the last step, we connect Power BI to SharePoint simply using SharePoint connector. You put your site, SharePoint site, into Power BI. You can get a list of files. It's better to click on transform data. You can filter names by what you need. Let's say you want, in our case, refreshables. And then extract this content. So in our case, we can keep content, name, other stuff can be moved. And already here I have example for refreshes because I did some steps over what we have. So you see I'm filtering. Okay. So then I implement couple of steps in Power Query. So I connect to SharePoint, then do some manual Power Query coding, but you can do, of course, using some buttons in Power Query editor. I keep on the date between delimiters. I want to have information by dates. Also filter between periods. So for instance, I want to load only files within this period from 1st of July until some 16th of July. So, and this I put as a filter to all information I load. so it's filtered here. Then do some couple transformations. Maybe I need to combine them to make it more fancy, but it's fine for now. And do some transformations. This report I can provide as reference for you, and also a good that each flow can be extracted, exported as logic apps template JSON. So you can export as a file. Okay, and this can be reused. Let's say if you want to from template. Oh, sorry, I didn't use it very often. Just remember that you can extract it. I think import should work. Zip package. So in our case, if you want to reuse it in Flow, it's better to export this package. Give it a name. It will be a BI template. Okay, that okay, export. For instance, this one can be shared and you can test it. So new from, okay, import, upload, zip file. And also in the meantime, I will tell you that Power Automate is actually built on top of another service, which is a part of Azure. It is called Logic Apps, and they have a lot of common, and actually Power Automate is using the same functions as Logic Apps. There are some limitations, some differences between these two, but you can think that it is the same, but for Logic Apps, there are no such good interface as for Power Automate. And that's why you see option to export this Logic Apps template as JSON. Okay, go to here. Okay, credentials, the SharePoint, create new. Let's try. Okay, so shouldn't be so long. What else can be important? Okay, it is done. Let's try. Okay, it is here. So you can reuse it, this code. If you're interested, I can post it in some shared folder and share it with you. Okay, and also Power BI report. At the moment, as I told, I'm looking into such API for activity events to enrich my report with good information per users, so I can audit some activities, maybe some reports which are not no more needed. At the moment, I built a not so complex, pretty basic report, but imported a lot of information into Power BI report here. Workspaces, datasets, reports, dashboards, and linked all this information. So created a unique dataset ID table and linked reports and dataset to this table. Also refreshables are linked to these dataset IDs. And other objects like dashboards are linked and users are linked to workspaces. So let's say, for instance, I'm interested to refresh time and status. This example is not from my work, but from my tenant, which I use for demo and trainings. So not a lot of information here. But for instance, you can see there is a report which is valid because I linked the report to dataset. It is valid, start end date, and time error category. There is error text for each dataset, but I would like to have it categorized. So let's say if this error, then put it as model refresh. Model is broken, kind of this model error. So you can collect all these errors if you want and make some mapping table. I just started and I don't have much errors, so just for example I have this one. So you can have such categorizing and you can understand what is happening with your reports. Okay, I think I deleted this one. I need to add it here, category. And also I'm interested if some reports are not on dedicated capacity. So I may consider to ask users to move it to premium if I have, because sometimes it is required to share within other users, and within premium you don't need to pay pro licenses when you share, so it's good to have it on dedicated capacity, only in premium, not embedded. Okay, there a lot of stuff can be done and also explained more in this. I may consider to do another session, maybe some deep dive, and how to enrich it with other information. This I'm showing you as like proof of concept, which I'm doing for myself to understand my reports better. And as I understand, not much information across internet in one place. And for instance, this API was not discovered deeply by any people because it is buggy now. So you saw if you extend to start of the day, it doesn't work. So I just open it as, I don't know, like first person who tried this, or maybe first person who asked Microsoft to fix this. So there are a lot of stuff which you can add simply by leveraging Microsoft Flow and SharePoint, which is not fully free like this one. I spent $15 for Microsoft Flow license. There's also a way to do all the API requests, like this one or this, can be done also in Power Query inside of Power BI. But in this case, you will not keep refresh history. So all this information you can retrieve using API, but in using Flow and SharePoint, you can keep history. So this is a benefit of this approach. But I tried with API inside of Power Query. It is also working fine, but it does not meet the goal to keep history. There are a lot of information, so yeah, not much time, but I will stay. If you have questions, you can ask me about this stuff. Or maybe you already overloaded, it's already too much information and you are tired, I don't know. So you can ping me here in chat or in meetup event. You can ask questions here, and I would upload these files into share drive so you can test it by yourself. Okay, so thank you for your time here. Okay, so see you other time.
Thank you. It was a very interesting presentation. Thank you.